I can't believe it's been 10 years since the summer of 2015, a summer I hold close to my heart, as 2015 is when I began getting into watching movies more often, outside of my usual go-tos from childhood. I mainly credit that to the large amount of blockbusters in 2015, most notably from the summer: Avengers: Age of Ultron, Mad Max: Fury Road, Jurassic World, Inside Out, Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation, just to name a few. However, despite all these big-budget blockbusters, in hindsight, summer 2015 in film turned in lackluster results. Sure, we got tons of huge releases, but that doesn't mean all were great. No, this summer was far from perfect. In fact, the list of great films released in summer 2015, I reckon, is on the slim side. So, with it now being the 10th anniversary of summer 2015, let's dive back in. And I'll explain exactly why this summer was rather lackluster. Beginning in May, audiences were immediately treated to a massive blockbuster. On May 1st, 2015, Avengers: Age of Ultron came to theaters. I can't specify what the excitement level was leading up to Ultron because it released around a year before I became a real MCU fan. Regardless, I'm sure people were pumped to see a sequel to 2012's The Avengers. In present day, I know a lot of folks still consider Age of Ultron good. If you ask me, I've never been a fan. Out of the MCU's large team-up films, Age of Ultron is the one you could skip and wouldn't miss much. Ultron does partially set up Civil War with the Sokovia Accords, plus the debut of Scarlet Witch, Vision, and Quicksilver are seen here. But they could have had Accords parallel to these, set up after all the destruction caused in the first Avengers movie. They also could have introduced both Vision and Scarlet Witch in another film. Marvel saw the success of 2012's The Avengers though, so more Avengers entries needed to come. And what we got next is Age of Ultron. I don't think Avengers 2 is bad, I just don't find the film necessary. What it sets up could have and likely should have been done in other films. It's not like Ultron is a big overlapping villain either, he's a one-off character who barely gets mentioned again. So as far as quality goes, Age of Ultron wasn't a smash hit to start summer 2015. On May 8th, Hot Pursuit released, and did this summer in film no favors. It's a Reese Witherspoon comedy that isn't comedic at all. The following weekend delivered what was far and away May's best movie, Mad Max: Fury Road. One of the greatest action flicks you'll ever see. Chances are if you're watching this, you've seen Fury Road. But if you somehow haven't, make sure you do pronto. Between the impeccable action sequences, ferocious score, immaculate visual effects, and edge-of-your-seat filmmaking we rarely see these days, Fury Road is not a good movie, it's an utter masterpiece. Pitch Perfect 2 also released on May 15th, but you probably forgot about it because of how good Fury Road was. Memorial Day weekend 2015 saw the release of Disney's Tomorrowland. I just watched Tomorrowland for the first time the other day for the sake of this video. And well, it's fine. I think Tomorrowland begins strong. There's an intriguing mystery as you follow a teenage girl who's trying to figure out what Tomorrowland is. Then about halfway through the movie, once they reveal what's happening, Tomorrowland is no longer nearly as interesting. And I find it hard to believe any child could keep up with Tomorrowland's story. After all, this was made for kids, yet I doubt a single one of them could follow the plot. No wonder the box office underperformed, leading to no sequels. The Poltergeist remake came out the same weekend in 2015. Do I really need to explain why you're better off sticking to the original? Memorial Day weekend that year fell flat. Easily one of the worst Memorial Day weekends for film in history. Then on May 29th, Dwayne Johnson's disaster flick San Andreas hit theaters. What I like to consider a soft copy and paste of 2012. Now, I'm someone who loves a fun disaster movie. Look at The Day After Tomorrow, for instance. On the other hand, San Andreas takes it a step too far, without bringing much originality. Not only is San Andreas hysterical, I mean, this movie is really funny for all the wrong reasons. But also, San Andreas found the need to replicate what previous disaster movies have done. You got divorced parents, the father is of course unsure about the ex-wife's new boyfriend. Meanwhile, the father's kid is still attached to him. Then cue some natural disaster that puts the family in a sticky situation. You even have scientists who saw it coming from a million miles away. Let's not forget about the cringeworthy dialogue either. If you like mindless entertainment, San Andreas is okay, but it's definitely one of the weaker disaster flicks I've seen. Aloha arrived as well on May 29th to dismal reviews. To my surprise, Aloha wasn't actually bad. With some changes to the space side plot that everyone agrees sucks, I believe Aloha could have been a new rom-com classic. But yeah, Mad Max Fury Road was May's only great film. Unfortunately, it didn't get much better from here. June would follow May's direction by giving us one great piece of cinema, and everything else was solid at best. On June 3rd, we got the Entourage movie, what is best described as a cameo clinic. Then on June 5th, Spy released to surprisingly really good reviews. And I get why, but let's be real, not many people talk about Spy these days, which doesn't surprise me. And Insidious Chapter 3 came out too. I feel like the franchise probably should have stopped after 1. The movies continue making money though, so why stop? Now on to June 12th. This weekend in 2015 saw the release of summer's biggest blockbuster, Jurassic World. Many people were excited for another entry in the Jurassic Park franchise. Things had been left in poor shape following Jurassic Park 3. So everyone hoped Jurassic World would be a grand return to form since Steven Spielberg's movies. Now after seeing Jurassic World in theaters, I tricked myself into thinking I had witnessed a great film. Instead, Jurassic World feels like a movie disguised as the original Jurassic Park, when in reality, it's a cliché, soft reboot monster flick made by executives in suit jackets, not director Colin Trevorrow. The characters are robotic, you couldn't care less if any of them were to get eaten alive by dinosaurs. Of course they overuse CGI, I mean, why use expensive animatronics when you have CGI at your disposal? Also, it's one of the most predictable films in the Jurassic Park franchise. Everything that happens, you see coming from a mile away. That's your classic modern-day blockbuster filmmaking for you. Like I said, Colin Trevorrow wasn't really the guy who made Jurassic World. It may be popcorn fun and entertaining, but man, they couldn't have delivered a more soulless Jurassic movie. Until they released 2 more sequels. Jurassic World reminds us that when a franchise is dead, it must stay dead. They explored just about every possibility imaginable in the first 3, so what else could they do? I guess Universal thought, oh yeah, let's have a film where they open a functional dinosaur park to the public, and obviously things will go wrong. In what realm would opening a functional dinosaur park to the public make any logical sense after the events of the first 3 movies? But yeah, Universal saw money potential in this franchise with a soft reboot, so we got Jurassic World. At least the following weekend, on June 19th, Pixar gifted us with Inside Out, what is easily one of Pixar's best since the 2000s ended. Inside Out fired on all cylinders. It's one of Pixar's most original films, the movie has a ton of heart. Every time I've seen Inside Out, nothing stops me from tearing up. The voice cast is great, I love the story and themes. From start to finish, Inside Out is one of the few Pixar movies I consider on the same tier as their classics from the 90s and 2000s. Like Fury Road, Inside Out is the only movie from its month in the summer of 2015 that I think is a masterpiece. During the next weekend, June 26th, Ted 2 came out, and it suffers from comedy sequel syndrome. Ted 2 is not as funny, the plot is nonsensical, and I don't think we needed a sequel. Clearly, audiences felt the same, as Ted 2 grossed less than half as much as the original. Real quick, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications for upcoming videos. In the month of July, more high-budget blockbusters were on the way. Remember what I said about Jurassic Park needing to die? Well, the same goes for Terminator. Sadly, July 1st, 2015's big release was Terminator Genisys. I watched Genisys for the very first time last year, and thought beforehand, maybe critics were too harsh in 2015. Nope. Every bad review had justification. If you believe the Terminator timeline was a mess before Genisys, wait till you see this. Like Jurassic World, Genisys is a soft reboot. So they try reinventing plot points, introduce new versions of old characters, with Arnold still involved, but nothing works. You walk out having witnessed another forgettable Terminator entry. It's true, the Terminator franchise should have stayed dead after 3. Thankfully, I think they finally got that memo once Dark Fate arrived. But wow, was Genesis absolute garbage. On July 10th came Minions, part of the Despicable Me franchise. For myself, there are two great films in this franchise, Despicable Me 1 and Minions: The Rise of Gru. Besides these, I'm not fond of Despicable Me's universe. If I had to pick my third favorite, it probably would be 2015's Minions. Only because the Minions are my favorite aspect of every flick, outside of the two movies I named. And here, they get the spotlight. There's some good humor, the plot is coherent, and the villain is formidable for a change. Great movie? Not even close. A fun one to watch with the niece and nephew occasionally? Yeah, I guess. July 17th saw the release of Marvel's Ant-Man, the second MCU installment of summer 2015. And I've always liked Ant-Man. It's by no means an S-tier MCU installment, however, Paul Rudd and company make the movie pretty entertaining. The villain does leave much to be desired, the general tone is light in comparison to Marvel's best of the best, and for the most part, this is another run-of-the-mill MCU blockbuster, with sprinkles of humor and a heist plot. For these reasons, I never find myself wanting to rewatch Ant-Man often, even if it is pretty entertaining. Audiences got Trainwreck 2 on July 17th. Like Ant-Man, it's good, just nothing groundbreaking, as we've seen movies like Trainwreck before. Although, I do wish LeBron James could appear in similar comedies more frequently. July 24th, 2015 had a weekend featuring Adam Sandler's Pixels, a comedy that never quite reaches its potential for as creative as Pixels is. Maybe because, once again, this turned out as another typical Adam Sandler film. Nobody should have expected anything different. Alongside Pixels' release was Jake Gyllenhaal's Southpaw. I'm someone who's a sucker for boxing cinema, and obviously Southpaw is a solid movie with Antoine Fuqua as director and Jake Gyllenhaal leading. Nonetheless, they don't reinvent the genre. You can guess where it's going from the opening frame. Yes, there are some good boxing matches, Gyllenhaal is great, and the story is darker. Sadly though, they don't take Southpaw in any unexpected directions. To close out July was the release of Mission Impossible's fifth entry, Rogue Nation. Now, I've talked about Mission Impossible quite a bit on my channel lately, so I'm not going to provide a deep dive on my Rogue Nation thoughts. All I'll say is, Rogue Nation is very good. The first hour and 20 minutes is some of the best Mission Impossible ever. Then the last 40 minutes or so greatly drop off in my opinion. The climax isn't as good as some of the best MI installments. Therefore, while I think Rogue Nation is borderline great, it doesn't reach its potential thanks to an underwhelming finale. Lastly, we've reached August, and well, we had quite the contradictory weekend to kickstart the month. The 2015 reboot of Fantastic Four released on August 7th to some of the worst reviews of the year. Unfortunately, these reviews were no doubt justified. Fantastic Four 2015 makes 2005's iteration look spectacular. What we get here is basically nothing for the first hour plus, followed by a terrible, shoehorned Dr. Doom, who attacks during the final 20 minutes. And of course, it's extremely rushed. You also have one of the worst Miles Teller performances, not like he had much to work with, because the dialogue is equally abhorrent, and like, what reason is there to ever revisit Fantastic Four 2015? There's oddly a low amount of comedy, you get minimal Fantastic Four scenes. Why even call this Fantastic Four when it doesn't feel like a Fantastic Four flick? Anyway, I said the August 7th weekend is contradictory due to the fact that The Gift came out as well. And it's a film I love. This is some of the best work from Jason Bateman, Joel Edgerton, and Rebecca Hall. There's a plethora of tension, a great twist, and riveting mystery to Edgerton's character. I'd say The Gift is up there for one of my all-time favorite thrillers. Alrighty, let's get into what closed out summer 2015. On August 14th was The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Many claim U.N.C.L.E. is the best Henry Cavill movie. I won't go that far. The main reason I like it is because of Cavill and co-star Armie Hammer. Their on-screen banter is something special. But I don't think The Man from U.N.C.L.E. is great or anything. Just another entertaining Guy Ritchie film. Straight Outta Compton released the same day. I watched this movie once, found some enjoyment, then never thought about it again. Maybe because I'm not crazy about musical biopics. If you like rap, specifically NWA, I can understand your love for the film, but I've heard from many big fans that Straight Outta Compton held back on a lot. and was somewhat historically inaccurate. On August 21st, we received Hitman Agent 47. Oh man, was this bad. I did touch on Agent 47 in depth in a recent video. I'll clip that above so you can check it out. Finally, August 28th, 2015 delivered No Escape. I think it's good. No Escape is all-around popcorn entertainment with very strong performances and loads of suspense. Owen Wilson may be the star, but Pierce Brosnan stole the show. So I counted, 3 great movies from summer 2015? Then Mission Impossible Rogue Nation as a borderline great film? That's kind of disappointing. Audiences came into the summer hopeful, with a variety of blockbusters on the horizon. As it turned out, just about all of them were either mid or complete pieces of trash. So for these reasons, I find summer 2015 from top to bottom lackluster. Blockbusters like Avengers Age of Ultron, Jurassic World, Terminator Genesis, Fantastic Four, and so on fell well short of expectations. Like I said, I do have fond memories of summer 2015 since this was around the time when movies became a huge part of my life. However, when you take a closer look, summer 2015 didn't deliver much greatness at all. And 10 years later, I feel like 2015 was the start of people finally getting fed up with studios milking franchises. And it's quite unfortunate Hollywood still hasn't learned their lesson. So, 10 years later, what do you think about the summer of 2015 in film? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments. Well, thank you all so much for watching this video. Again, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button if you enjoyed yourself. I'll catch you all in the next one. See you then.